A man would confess to being involved in the death of a young girl, but her body has still never been found. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Kiplyn Davis. Viewer discretion is advised. Kiplyn Davis was born on July 1st, 1979, and she lived in Spanish Fork, Utah. Kiplyn was really close with her sister, and they shared a bedroom together, and they were like the best of friends. Kiplyn was about 6 years older, and as Kiplyn got older, she would actually kind of babysit her younger sister, but that's also kind of how they bonded. Her sister Carissa, growing up, said that herself, Carissa was really shy, but Kiplyn, on the other hand, was a really outgoing, very outspoken girl. Kiplyn was definitely the more sociable sister, and she made friends like it was nothing. It was just like easy peasy for her. Kiplyn would always find a way to just show kindness to literally everyone, especially like her, fellow students at school. Even the ones who may have been a little mean or, whatever the case may be, she always seemed to just kind of find the good and the kindness in everyone. She was described as like a kindred spirit because she babysat her sister all the time, and she also liked to babysit other kids in the neighborhood, just to earn a few bucks. But also she took that experience and she basically decided that what she wanted to be when she grew up was a teacher. She wanted to be involved with educating kids and also just helping kids. She just seemed to be very kind of wise beyond her years. At the time of the story, she's only 15 years old, but she always came off as like just much older, more mature. But she still liked being a kid too. She loved going out, playing. She just loved having fun. Kiplyn Davis attended Spanish Fork High School there in Spanish Fork, Utah. And like I said, she was 15 years old at the time of the story, and she was a sophomore there. Because she was getting really close to being 16, she was trying to get her permit, her driver's permit. So she was enrolled in driver's classes there at the school, and those classes were always super early in the morning, like 5 or something in the morning. So basically Monday through Friday, she was waking up at like 4 o'clock, 4:30 a.m. in order to get to her driving class. And then from there, she would just go to school. And pretty much she would always be on time, and she would always love getting ready and going to school, except for this one particular morning. It was May 2nd, 1995, and her alarm went off, and she just kept hitting the snooze button. She didn't want to wake up. She didn't want to go to driver's class that morning. She just wasn't feeling it. When she finally got up, she kind of just asked her mom and dad, hey, can I not go to driver's class today? Can I just skip it? I'm just really tired. I want to get an extra little bit of rest. Her parents said no. Her parents wanted her to go. And this caused an argument. They fought that morning. And Kiplyn did not win the argument. Basically, her parents won. And so Kiplyn got into her mom's car. I believe her dad said something along the lines, because they were still kind of in an argument, the last thing he said to her was something along the lines of, just go get ready and get the hell out of here. And didn't really say like goodbye. He didn't know that would be the last time he would ever see Kiplyn again. So pretty much every day, Kiplyn would be home from school by about 3:30 p.m. So when her dad got home that afternoon, shortly before 3:30, he was expecting Kiplyn home at any minute, but she never walked in the door. He checked the answering machine, and he noticed there was a message from the school. The school said that Kiplyn had not gone to her afternoon classes. She missed her last 2 classes. And, the parents are kind of thinking, maybe she just, we had an argument that morning, and maybe she was just trying to be rebellious, But then 4 o'clock came, and then 4:30, and then by 5 p.m., Kiplyn still isn't home. They're calling around to her friends. They haven't seen her, after school. As a matter of fact, some of them don't recall seeing her after lunch that afternoon. So the parents are obviously very concerned, and so they go to police and they go to report her missing. Because the parents told police that they had gotten into a fight that morning, the police did not take it as seriously from the get-go because, she's just a teenager. rebelling against her parents. She'll be home soon. She wasn't. So the parents drive to the school and they begin to talk to people at the school. They're like, you know, have you guys seen her? Where did you guys see her last? They're talking to faculty. They don't really have much of an answer for them. And then they get a hold of some of her friends again. And one of the friends says that they saw Kiplyn during the lunch period in the cafeteria talking to another fellow student named Chris Jepson. Chris Jepson was someone the parents weren't super familiar with, but they did kind of have a recollection that there was someone named Chris that Kiplyn may have had a crush on at one point. And so, you know, was this sort of like, did she run off with him somewhere, you know? So the parents get in touch with, I guess, Chris's parents, and then they go to the house. But when they get there, Chris isn't home. So they drive back to the school. They begin looking around the school campus. They begin looking around the neighborhood of the school, and they just can't find any trace of her. And then later that night, the parents go back to Chris's house. And when they get there, they see a bunch of cars kind of in the driveway. One of the cars they recognize belonging to one of Kiplyn's friends. His name was Rucker Leifson. I guess he was someone who had a crush on Kiplyn and asked her out on a date once, but I guess she said no, but they were still friends. The next morning, Kiplyn still has not been seen. Now the police are taking it a little bit more seriously. The faculty at the school, they begin kind of going around the school asking kids like, listen, if you guys can recall anything about the last time you saw her, please tell us. Please tell the parents, please tell the police, tell someone. That's when they also are able to access Kiplyn's locker, and all of her belongings are in it. Everything. Like her backpack, her purse, her, like everything. And so they realize that, you know, Kiplyn had intentions to come back to school if she had left sometime during lunch. But then she never came back to get her stuff. So now they're becoming increasingly worried. So the police then question Chris Jepson, and he says that he saw Kiplyn last during the lunch period, but then he did not see her after lunch, which is pretty much the story everyone gave, that no one had seen Kiplyn after lunch. They asked, okay, Chris, what's your alibi? Where were you the rest of the day? And he said he was with his friends Rucker Leifson and Timmy Olsen. They were actually at the school pretty much all afternoon and all evening. They were, I guess, stringing up some lights for some event that was going to be happening at the school, and then they were just kind of messing around, hanging out on the school grounds and throwing a football around. Why they were allowed on campus during the evening, I don't know. So police take Rucker Leifson, and then they ask him, you know, to give his alibi and his account, and he was pretty much identical to what Chris Jepson said. They interview Tim Olsen, and he says the same thing they did. But they had no physical traces of Kiplyn anywhere. There were no witness sightings that saw her off the school grounds. There was no one who could recall seeing her after lunch that day, and nothing of hers was found anywhere, nor was she found anywhere. And the case just went cold very fast because they had nothing. About a year or so later, apparently Chris Jepson would go to Kiplyn's parents and say, in a kind of an unusual way, he said, I'm really sorry about what happened to Kiplyn. Like, because at this point, she's obviously still missing. It's been a year. He says, I'm sorry about what happened to her. When they kind of pressed him, they're like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I don't know what happened to her. I'm just sorry about what happened to her. But he wasn't really super specific about it. So this kind of prompted police to look back into Chris Jepson and also his two friends, Rucker and Timmy. They bring all three in for questioning, and they give all three polygraph tests. This particular time, Chris's story and Rucker's story are basically a match. They still are the same story they told before. Timmy, however, his story began to vary from the other two guys' story. Timmy told police that actually he and Rucker and Kiplyn had gone to Spanish Fork Canyon that afternoon, the afternoon she went missing. He says Kiplyn and Rucker, they went off a different path on their own while he was on his own. He then says Rucker came back to me, but Kiplyn wasn't with him anymore. He didn't say where she was, And I guess the two of them just left. And then not but a few minutes later, Timmy says, you know what? Actually, none of that's true. I lied. And so he was re-polygraphed. And at this point, all three of them had passed their polygraph tests, despite the fact that Timmy told a big old lie, apparently, and then said he was lying afterwards. But this made police curious, so they went to Spanish Fork Canyon and they began searching as best as they can with, cadaver dogs. They kind of look, by air. They're also searching on the ground, obviously, but they come up with nothing. They don't find any of her belongings, like her clothing. They don't find her or any remains. They find nothing. And so they kind of just give up the search there. Then a couple more years go by, and friends of the trio had gone to police. The friends said that they were all at a party, and Timmy was there, and the story of Kiplyn's disappearance came on the news. And some of the people at the party overheard Timmy saying she got what she deserved. But it just wasn't anything that they could use in terms of, that wasn't like physical evidence. That was just hearsay from people at a party with a bunch of people. But then at this point, Chris Jepsen is now married because this is after high school. And his wife would go to police and tell them something interesting. I guess Chris and his wife were one day watching true crime stuff on television. And so this prompted her to just ask questions like, hey, Chris, what's the worst thing you've ever done? It was just a silly, question. According to her, his response was, what would you do if you found out that I killed Kiplyn Davis? And she looked at him kind of like, what? And then he kind of laughed and chuckled and said, I'm just joking, because she knew he had been wrapped up in that story. And so he just went off like it was just a silly joke. But police are like, all right, these three guys have got to know something. Their stories keep changing. We keep hearing these little things from people. And they realize, have we ever looked into their alibi? Did we ever check to see if they truly were at the school all afternoon and all evening, throwing the football around, hanging up lights, and hanging out with others? And they begin to question people who were staff at the school, and they would find out that particular evening there was this big recital or dance recital or something going on that day. And because the three boys had said the school was basically vacant and there was nothing going on, and that's why they were there. Come to find out that wasn't even true. The school, there were people at the school, there was a big recital, so they figured the three boys at the time were lying about their alibi. And they kind of just caught all three of them in just so many different lies, and stories kept changing. And so while they didn't have any physical evidence to suggest that they had kidnapped or murdered or something, Kiplyn Davis, they did at least have evidence that they were lying, that they perjured themselves during the course of a police investigation. So they actually charged all three of them with perjury. And because of this, Timmy Olsen was actually sentenced to 12 years in prison. Chris Jepsen was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And then Rucker Leifson got 4 years in prison. They then decided, you know what, we're going to risk this and we're going to charge at least Tim and Chris with the murder of Kiplyn Davis, even though we have no body and we have no physical evidence. They didn't charge Rucker Leifson with murder, even though during one of Tim's stories, he said it was Rucker and him that were with Kiplyn at that canyon, even though he said it was a lie afterwards. And then basically Timmy Olsen managed to get himself a deal. He would say, I will plead guilty to manslaughter, and I will tell you what happened. And so everyone agreed. In 2011, Timmy Olsen said he and now an unknown person, an person he won't name, went to Spanish Fork Canyon with Kiplyn. He kind of goes back to his original story that he told about him and Rucker, but this time now it's not the unknown person. And he says the same thing he said before. Kiplyn and now this unknown person went off on their own. They were gone for about a half an hour, 40 minutes or so. But this time, Timmy says he went and found them. When he found them, he saw Kiplyn and this unknown person struggling. And then this unknown person took a rock and bashed it over Kiplyn's head at least twice that he saw. The unknown person then decided to ask Timmy, you just saw what happened, and so now you need to help me hide her body. So they dragged her to like some bushes, and then they just left her there. And then they left. They went about their day. They weren't even sure if she was dead. They didn't check her pulse or anything. So they go back several hours later, and she's in the exact same spot, and this time they can confirm that Kiplyn was dead. And so Timmy says that him and this unknown person dig a grave and bury Kiplyn. Police ask him, who is this unknown person? Who are you not telling us who this is? He says, I'm not going to tell you. Well, where is she? We owe it to the family. Where is she? I'm not going to tell you. And so basically, they kind of took their deal off the table, and instead, because he wasn't being cooperative at this point, so instead, Timmy would plead no contest, which means he's not pleading guilty, he's not pleading not guilty, he's just pleading no contest. And then the judge will determine basically what the sentence will be. So Timmy Olsen is now convicted of manslaughter, and he is given a 15-year sentence. But to this very day, nobody knows officially who this unknown person is. However, most people, including police, people involved, people close to this, and honestly, I kind of agree that this other person is likely Rucker Leifson. But because Timmy wouldn't name the person, and because there is no physical evidence and there's still no body to this very day, they have not found her body. They have not found any physical evidence. They cannot charge Rucker with, with murder, I guess, which I don't really understand why, because they initially had charged Timmy and Chris with murder without having any of that evidence. So I'm not sure why they can't charge Rucker. I don't know. Some people think that Rucker's family had kind of pressured Timmy into telling the story. They think he may have been threatened. It's just a rumor. But it is now 2023. It's been about 28 years since Kiplyn Davis disappeared, and her family still does not have any closure. Her family has still not been able to lay her to rest. Her family can't even say with absolute certainty that she was murdered, even though the likelihood is that she was. But why? What was the motive? What was the reason? What led to it? They have so many questions that are still so very much unanswered. So if you have any information about the disappearance of Kiplyn Davis, please contact the Spanish Fork Police Department there in Utah and provide them with anything you may know. At the very least, try to help this family find her so they can finally lay her to rest. But that is it for this case, True Crime Maroonies. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you have tripped, fallen, and stumbled your way into this video, hello, I'm Mike. I tell true crime stories, so please subscribe to me here if you like that kind of thing, you weirdo. And also follow me over on TikTok if you want to. I tell true crime stories there as well. It's linked in the link tree in the description of this video below. If you have a case you want me to cover, please email me. You can email me. The email is listed below. Just email me the name of the person, where it happened, when it happened, and I will eventually add that name to my list. I pick the cases I cover at random, so I can't tell you exactly when I'll cover it, but I will eventually. If you want to support me in any way, we do sell merch. We sell t-shirts and hoodies and a wine glass and stuff like that, and we do ship internationally. That is also in the link tree below. And then lastly, if you have a Discord account and you want to join my Discord server, it's linked below. And please be over the age of 18 or else you will be kicked out of there. It's a very quiet, very chill Discord server. But that is it for this video, True Crime Maroonies. And so I will see you all for the next video in a couple of days. Yeah, okay. Bye. Bye. Bye, I don't know. Bye.